Turning now to the Middle East, where the Syrian people are waking up to a new reality, one that does not involve the former dictator Bashar al-Assad. Over the weekend, Syrian rebels toppled the Assad regime in a swift and stunning upheaval of power. Crowds cheered in the streets as the opposition seized control of the capital city of Damascus. Russian state media reports that Assad and his family have fled to Moscow. The fall of Assad is raising new hope for American journalist Austin Tice. Tice was kidnapped in 2012, and the U.S. believes he's being held by the Syrian government. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby spoke with CBS News about the possibility of his safe return.
The events that unfolded over the weekend in Damascus may present an opportunity to get a little bit more information about where he is, what condition he's in, and what we may be able to do to get him home. I don't know that for sure. We're not certain of anything right now, except that we're going to continue to see what we can do to bring him home.
CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer is on the ground in the Syrian capital of Damascus with an inside look at Syria's presidential palace.
This is Syria's presidential palace, or at least it was. President Assad has fled, so it's empty. But for most Syrians, the idea of even being this close to it was unimaginable. And we're going to just walk right in. This was used for public events and ceremonies, greeting dignitaries. It's got a little bit of graffiti on the wall. It says, "Down with Bashar al-Assad." But apart from that, it's been remarkably undamaged. There certainly wasn't any big fighting here, and it doesn't look as if it's been much looted either. This was the Holy of Holies. Only very special dignitaries or important people were invited into this hall. It was very closely guarded, very exclusive. It sits high on the hillside above Damascus, so everybody could see it, but nobody could actually visit. Now, it is guarded by a few rebels, but chances are Syrians are going to be allowed in to have a look around for the first time in their lives. This looks like one of the ceremonial meeting rooms that the president would have used to receive visitors. And the furniture is beautiful. It's mother-of-pearl inlay and wood. And remarkably, it's not damaged. I mean, it just hasn't been looted or sacked at all.
Elizabeth Palmer with that inside look at Syria's abandoned presidential palace. Thank you. I want to bring in Qutaiba Idlbi, who joins me now. He's a senior fellow with the Atlantic Council and leads the organization's work on Syria. Thank you so much for being here. What does the fall of Assad mean for the Syrian people?
I mean, it means an end of an era for sure. It's been 62 years since the Assad regime took power in 1963. For years, no one even thought that is possible. After the popular uprising and Syria's civil war, it felt like Syria's destiny is very much tied with Assad. You know, the whole region, many countries around the world started normalizing with Assad. Even the Biden administration was contemplating the idea of reestablishing connections with the Assad regime. But then suddenly Syrians, different rebel groups have come together and basically proved how vulnerable and fragile the Assad regime is. I think Syrians are still in this unbelievable moment, still trying to process what it truly means, but also still trying to process what the future would bring to them.
So there's a power vacuum right now in Syria. What problems could arise while that vacuum exists? Is there a role for the United States in rebuilding Syria?
Absolutely. I think right now everyone is trying to deal with the immediate problems coming up. What we witnessed in Damascus on Sunday was a complete collapse of the government and the army, similar to actually the moment when Baghdad fell to the U.S. military back in Iraq 20 years ago. Despite that, however, we've seen, as you've reported, remarkable response from the Syrian people. We haven't seen a lot of incidents of looting and bribery, but there's definitely a lot of efforts needed on security. I think where the United States can play an important role is by actually pushing for a humanitarian appeal for Syria now to respond to the immediate humanitarian needs, considering the situation in Syria. It can work to reestablish UN Damascus-based operations so international organizations can resume their humanitarian and development work within Syria. But I think more importantly, the US should really think how it can utilize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring Syria back into the region and to make sure that the changes of pushing Iran out, of pushing the Assad regime out, are irreversible.
The U.S. currently designates the leading rebel group as a terror organization. How does that complicate the ability for the U.S. to engage with them if it chooses to?
I mean, it's definitely a complication, but at this point, HTS designation as a terrorist organization is a political decision rather than a CT assessment. On the counterterrorism front, the Hayat Tahrir Sham HTS has actually broke off from al-Qaeda. It has shifted its ideology from transnational jihadism. It has actually fought both al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria for the last 6 and 7 years. So they've definitely no reason from the CT level to list them as a designated organization. But the designation presents an opportunity for the United States to make sure there is actually an inclusive process towards Syria's democratic future. So an engagement here is very important. You also mentioned in your report, of course, what's happening in the search for kidnapped American journalist Austin Tice that has been held by the Assad regime for 11 years now. So as we figure out where Austin Tice is, if he's still alive or not, there definitely needs to be a line of communication with HTS to make sure that the secure of Austin is swift and that he's back home with his family.
Qutaiba Idlbi, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.